Settle in now and let the room around you become quiet. Tonight, we are going to Istanbul after midnight, to the edge of the Bosphorus, where the city does not fully sleep, but softens into water, light, and distance. We are going to cross between continents on a late ferry, slowly, under the dark sky, with warm tea in a small glass, the low hum of the engine beneath the deck, and the lights of the city trembling across the water. Before we begin, if you enjoy quiet sleep stories like this, you can subscribe for more calm journeys, peaceful travel stories, and relaxing bedtime narration. You can also leave a comment and tell us where you are listening from, what time it is where you are, and what peaceful place you would like to visit next. It is always wonderful to see how far these stories travel around the world. Now, get comfortable, let the room around you grow quiet, and allow the journey to begin. Istanbul at night gathers itself around the water. The city rises on both sides of the Bosphorus, layered with hills, domes, apartment lights, old stone walls, dark trees, ferry docks, bridges, and narrow streets that slope toward the shore. It is not a quiet city in the way a mountain village is quiet, or an island after the crowds have gone. Istanbul has a deeper, older kind of night sound. The movement never disappears completely. It loosens. It lowers its voice. It becomes the sound of distant traffic above the quay, a cup placed on a saucer, a gull calling once in the dark, a ferry horn far away, water touching stone, and wind moving along the strait between Europe and Asia. The Bosphorus itself seems to hold the city together. It is not only water passing through land. It is a dark, moving corridor of reflections, a long, breathing line between two shores. On one side, minarets rise above old neighborhoods. On the other, warm windows climb the hills. Bridges stretch in the distance like necklaces of light. Ferries cross back and forth, even late, smaller now, quieter now, each one carrying a few passengers, a few cups of tea, a few people going home, a few people still wandering, and the steady rhythm of the engine under the floor. Tonight, you arrive at the water after the busiest hour has passed. The streets behind you are still awake, but no longer rushing. A few cafes are closing. Chairs scrape softly across pavement. Someone lowers a metal shutter halfway, then pauses to speak with a neighbor. A taxi moves slowly past, yellow light sliding over wet stones. The air smells of salt, diesel, roasted chestnuts, black tea, and the faint sweetness of bread from a bakery that has begun preparing for morning. Ahead, beyond the last row of buildings, the ferry dock glows under white lamps. The water beyond it is almost black, and the city is waiting on both sides. Chapter 1. The dock at the edge of midnight. The ferry dock is quieter than it would be in the day. During the morning and evening rush, people would pour through the gates with practiced speed, holding bags, phones, paper cups, briefcases, flowers, umbrellas, groceries, children's hands. The ferry would be part of routine then, almost invisible because it is so familiar. At midnight, the dock feels different. The same metal railings are there, the same ticket machines, the same signs, the same benches facing the water. But with fewer people, every small sound becomes clear. A shoe on the gangway, a plastic bag shifting in the wind, the faint chime of a turnstile, water knocking gently against the floating platform, the small mechanical sigh of the dock rising and falling. You move slowly toward the waiting area. A man in a dark coat stands near the rail, looking across the Bosphorus without moving. A student sits on a bench with headphones in, her backpack at her feet, her face lit softly by her phone. Two older women speak quietly beside a stack of shopping bags. A ferry worker in a navy jacket leans against a post and watches the water with the calm of someone who has seen the same crossing in every season. The ferry has not arrived yet. That is good. Waiting beside water is part of the journey. You stand near the edge where the dock is open to the night. The wind comes across the strait, cool and clean, carrying the smell of the water and the city together. Across the Bosphorus, the opposite shore is a long necklace of amber and white lights. Some of them are streets, some are apartments, some are mosque courtyards, some are restaurants still open above the water. From here, they blur into one soft line. A gull passes above, mostly unseen. Its call falls once through the dark and disappears. The dock lights reflect in the water below you. They do not hold their shape. They stretch, break, gather, and break again. A floating rope creaks against a post. Farther out, another ferry crosses in the opposite direction, its windows lit like a moving room. You watch it travel between the two shores, slow and steady, until it slips behind the darker shape of the dock building. A tea seller is closing a small kiosk nearby. He stacks tulip-shaped glasses in rows, each glass catching a little light at its rim. He wipes the counter with a cloth, moves a tray inside, then leaves one kettle steaming near the back, as if the night may still ask for something warm. The smell of black tea drifts toward you, strong and slightly bitter. And suddenly, the dock feels less like a place to wait, and more like the beginning of a small ritual. A bell sounds softly near the gate. Not loud, not urgent. The ferry is approaching. You see its lights first, low over the water. Then the white shape of the upper deck. Then the dark windows. Then the name painted on the side, unreadable at first, then clear only for a moment as it turns toward the dock. The engine sound grows from a distant hum into something present, steady and comforting. The ferry slows. Water folds outward from its bow. A crew member steps into view and catches the rope. The dock shifts beneath your feet as the boat settles against it. A gangway is placed with a heavy but practiced sound. The passengers waiting around you gather their things, but no one rushes. At this hour, there is time. You join the small group moving forward. The ferry waits. The Bosphorus darkens beyond it, and the crossing begins. Chapter 2. Boarding the late ferry. Stepping onto the ferry feels like entering a room happens to move. The deck is lit warmly, but not brightly. The floor is damp in places from sea spray and the night air. The benches along the side are painted and worn smooth by years of passengers. Inside, through the windows, rows of seats face each other in the familiar arrangement of public travel. Practical, simple, quietly human. You choose the outside deck, not because the cabin is unpleasant. It looks warm and peaceful, with a few passengers already seated under fluorescent lights, softened by the late hour. But tonight belongs to the water, and you want the wind, the lights, the open side of the crossing. You walk to the rail and sit on a bench where the city can remain visible as the ferry pulls away. A crew member moves along the deck, checking the ropes. His steps are unhurried. He has done this too many times to make the work dramatic. One rope is released, then another. The gangway is lifted. A low vibration passes through the ferry as the engine deepens. The dock begins to move away, or the ferry does. At first, it is difficult to tell. The rail beneath your hand trembles softly. The water between the boat and the platform widens. The people on shore become shapes under the lamps. The tea kiosk, the ticket gate, the waiting benches, the dock worker, all of them shift slowly backward into the city you are leaving. The ferry turns toward the strait. The European shore opens behind you. Domes and minarets appear above the darker line of buildings, not fully illuminated, not theatrical, but present in the night. Their silhouettes seem to rise from the city the way old thoughts rise from memory, quietly and without effort. Some windows glow in the neighborhoods below them. A road curves along the water. Cars move like small white and red beads, but their sound does not reach you clearly. The ferry engine settles into rhythm. A low hum moves through the deck. A slight vibration rises through the bench. A soft push moves against the water. A gentle shift comes whenever the boat meets a small wave. Travel by ferry has a different pace from walking. On foot, every step belongs to you. On a ferry, you surrender the movement. You do not have to decide when to turn, when to cross, how fast to go. The boat carries that responsibility. You are allowed to sit, breathe, and watch the shore change distance. That makes the mind quieter. A man walks past carrying a tray of tea glasses, each one set in a small saucer. He moves with perfect balance, as if the deck were still. He offers tea to the few passengers outside. When he reaches you, you nod, and he places a glass beside you on the bench. The tea is dark red in the ferry light. You wrap your fingers around the narrow glass carefully, feeling the heat through the curved shape. Steam rises and disappears into the wind. You take a small sip. It is strong, plain, and exactly right. The ferry leaves the dock fully now. The water widens. The European side begins to become a view instead of a place. Behind you, the dock lights shrink. Ahead, the Asian shore waits in a softer line of lamps and dark hills. Between them, the Bosphorus opens, deep and black, carrying the boat through the city as if through a long valley made of water. You sit with the tea, warming your hands. The crossing becomes the whole world for a while. Chapter 3. Eliavianji, the European shore. As the ferry moves farther out, the city changes shape. From the dock, the European shore was made of details. The kiosk, the railings, the steps, the lamps, the people waiting. From the water, those details soften into layers. A line of buildings along the shore, dark streets rising behind them, a mosque dome catching a faint glow, minarets as thin vertical marks against the sky. The old city folded into the night. You turn slightly to keep watching it. The ferry does not hurry. It cuts a quiet path through the water, and the wake opens behind it in two dark, rippling wings. Light from the shore falls into the wake and breaks into moving fragments. For a moment, every window behind you seems to have a second life on the surface of the Bosphorus. Then the water folds and the reflections vanish. Another ferry passes at a distance. Its interior lights reveal a few passengers inside. One person leaning against the glass, another sleeping with arms folded, a crew member walking through the cabin. The two ferries do not come close, but for a few seconds their paths feel connected. Two small islands of light moving through the same dark water. Then it is gone behind you. The wind grows clearer away from shore. It moves around the ferry in soft currents, cooler at the rail, warmer near the cabin door where light spills out. You pull your coat closer, not because you are cold, but because the gesture belongs to night travel. Coat closed, tea in hand, water moving below. City lights behind and ahead. The tea seller returns to collect empty glasses, but yours is still half full. He nods and moves on. You take another sip. The warmth travels slowly through your chest. On the upper deck, someone speaks quietly into a phone, then stops. A child inside the cabin leans against a parent and sleeps. Two men near the back rail talk in low voices, their words carried away by the wind before they can become meaning. You do not need to understand them. Their presence is enough. The ferry is not lonely. It is shared, but gently. This is one of the quiet gifts of public travel at night. You are alone, but not abandoned. With others, but not crowded. Moving, but not responsible for movement. The European shore continues sliding behind you. You think of the streets above the water, still lit in places, emptying in others. A restaurant closing its door. Someone walking home with bread. A cat crossing beneath a parked car. A late tram moving along a road. A room where a lamp remains on beside an open window. A city is never only what can be seen from the ferry, but the ferry gives the city back as a single breathing thing. The broader shape matters, tonight more than the details. The ferry turns slightly, and the view opens northward. Far in the distance, one of the great bridges spans the Bosphorus. Its lights form a delicate line across the dark, suspended between the continents. It seems almost unreal from here, too graceful for something so large. Cars cross it silently from this distance, tiny movements of light passing high above the water. Below, your ferry continues at human scale. No need for speed, no need for height, only the steady crossing. The tea is nearly finished. You hold the warm glass a little longer before setting it down. The European shore is now behind you, but not gone. It remains as light on water. That is enough. Chapter 4. Tea on the open deck. The ferry reaches the middle of the Bosphorus. Here, the water feels wider than it looked from shore. The city is still everywhere, but it no longer surrounds you in the same way. It rests on both sides at a distance. The ferry holds the space between. The engine hum becomes more noticeable, not loud, not mechanical in a harsh way, more like a deep, steady note beneath everything else. It moves through the deck, through the bench, through the soles of your shoes. After a while, the body stops hearing it as sound and begins to feel it as rhythm. The rhythm is calming. A ferry is never perfectly still. It lifts slightly, settles, leans, corrects. The movements are small enough to trust, large enough to remind you that you are on water. Every shift happens under the wider steadiness of the boat's forward motion. You look down over the rail. The Bosphorus is black close to the ferry, but not empty. Foam appears and disappears beside the hull. Reflections from the cabin windows trail along the surface. A small wave catches amber light and then turns dark again. The water seems to be made of layers: surface, shadow, current, depth, and the long invisible pull between seas. Wind moves over the deck. The tea glass is empty now, but the warmth remains in your hands. You place the glass carefully into the small holder near the bench, where others have set theirs. The tiny curve of the tulip shape catches light one last time. Inside the cabin, more passengers have grown still. The student from the dock sits with her head leaned against the window. The older women speak less now, their shopping bags arranged neatly at their feet. A man reads messages on his phone, then turns the screen off and looks out instead. The ferry has worked its quiet change on everyone. There are journeys where people become restless the longer they travel. And there are journeys like this, where movement slowly removes restlessness. You stand and walk toward the back of the deck. The wake spreads behind the ferry, a dark path written and erased at the same time. Behind it, the European shore is now a long glimmer. The old city is no longer made of streets or buildings. It is a constellation close to the water. Above it, the sky has cleared in places, and a few stars are visible between thin clouds. Not many. Istanbul gives most of the night sky back to the city lights, but a few stars remain, enough to remind you that above the water, above the bridges, above the domes and hills and apartment windows, another darkness is waiting, older and wider than any city. The ferry horn sounds once, low, softened by distance, not alarming, The note moves across the water and returns faintly from somewhere ahead. A reply from shore, or only echo, or another boat beyond the dark. You return to your bench. The crossing has become simple now. Water moving, engine humming, wind passing, lights ahead, lights behind. The mind does not need much more. It is easy at this point to understand why ferries become part of a city's emotional life. They are not only transportation, they are pauses between lives. A worker going home, a traveler crossing for no reason except the crossing itself, a student after a long day, someone carrying groceries, someone returning from dinner, someone looking out at the water because the night is too beautiful to spend underground. For a little while, all of them share the same deck. The ferry continues east. The Asian shore grows brighter. Chapter 5. The dark water between continents. The idea of continents sounds large in daylight. Maps make it large. History makes it large. Language makes it large. But at midnight, on the ferry, Europe and Asia feel closer and softer than the words suggest. One shore behind you, one shore ahead. Both made of lights, homes, hills, roads, trees, and people sleeping or nearly sleeping. The water between them is not a wall. It is a meeting place. You sit with that thought as the ferry moves across the dark. The Bosphorus does not separate the city as much as it teaches it to move. Ferries, bridges, currents, voices, fish, gulls, fog, tea trays, engines, footsteps, all crossing back and forth until the division becomes rhythm instead of distance. The water grows slightly choppier near the middle. The ferry adjusts without drama. A small rise, a soft drop, a deeper vibration through the hull. The passengers barely react. This boat knows the strait. It has crossed in sun, fog, rain, snow, morning rush, summer heat, winter wind, and quiet nights like this one. Trust comes partly from repetition, not your repetition. The ferries. You look toward the Asian shore. The neighborhoods there seem warmer as you approach, not brighter exactly, but more intimate. Lights climb the hills in uneven patterns. Some streets are steep. Some windows are high above the water. A mosque near the shore glows softly, its dome lit from below, its minaret rising slender into the dark. Farther up, apartment blocks show scattered rooms still awake. A bridge stretches farther north, pale and delicate against the night. A smaller boat crosses ahead of you, leaving a quick line of disturbed water. It moves with more speed, perhaps a private boat, perhaps official, perhaps only another late traveler. Its lights flicker over the waves and then pass behind. The ferry begins to angle toward the dock. Not sharply, slowly. The movement changes the view again. The European shore comes into your left side. The Asian shore fills the front. The water no longer feels like open space, but like arrival beginning. You are not ready for the crossing to end. That is often the sign of a peaceful journey. Not wanting it to end, but but not resisting when it does. The tea seller appears again, this time offering one last round. You accept another glass. The crossing may be nearly finished, but a small warmth before arrival feels right. The glass is placed in your hands. Hot, clear, dark red, steaming slightly in the wind. You drink slowly while the ferry approaches the shore. The Asian side grows into detail. A row of dock lamps, a waiting platform, a few people standing behind railings, a small cafe still open near the ferry terminal, a line of taxis, trees moving in the wind, the dark slope of streets rising beyond. The boat's engine lowers. The water changes sound beside the hull. Arrival is not a stop. It is a gradual lessening. The ferry glides toward the dock, then turns gently, aligning itself with the platform. A crew member steps forward with rope. Another appears near the gangway. Passengers inside begin gathering bags, but slowly, reluctantly, as if the ferry has made them softer than when they boarded. You finish the tea. This glass, too, goes into the holder. The dock comes close. The rope is thrown. Caught, tied, the ferry rests against the Asian shore. Chapter 6. The Asian Shore After Midnight. You step off the ferry into a different quiet. The Asian shore is not silent. A taxi engine runs nearby. The cafe near the terminal still has light in the window. Someone laughs softly at a table under an awning. A scooter passes up the hill. But compared to the crossing, the land feels solid, specific, newly arrived. The dock boards are damp. The air smells of salt, tea, and grilled bread. A vendor near the terminal closes a glass case, moving slowly, not quite done with the night. The ferry behind you remains lit, waiting for its next short rest before crossing again. You do not leave the dock immediately. You stand near the rail and look back across the Bosphorus. The European shore lies opposite, now the place you came from. It looks both distant and close. The lights have not changed, but your relationship to them has. Crossing water does that. It makes a place feel remembered even while it remains visible. Behind you, the Asian neighborhoods rise. The streets near the terminal are gentle at this hour. A few shops closed, a few still open. The blue glow of a small grocery, the warm interior of a tea house, a bakery window fogged from inside, a cat sitting beneath a parked motorbike, a man washing the pavement in front of a shop with slow strokes of water. You walk away from the ferry terminal along the shore road. Not far, the water stays beside you on the left, dark and moving. On the right, buildings rise close to the road, some old, some modern, most with balconies, plants, laundry, small signs, and windows that suggest many lives stacked above the street. Istanbul does not become one kind of city just because the hour is late. It remains layered, mixed, generous, and complex, even in quiet. A small tea house remains open near the water. A few tables outside. metal chairs, a glass case with pastries, steam on the windows. Inside, an older man pours tea from a silver kettle. You choose a table outside under the awning, where you can still see the ferry dock and the water beyond it. The tea arrives without ceremony. A small glass, a saucer, a sugar cube you do not use. You sit with it as the ferry you arrived on prepares to leave again. The ropes are released. The engine deepens. The boat turns from the dock. The lights slide away. Now you watch from shore as another group crosses back into the night. There is something deeply peaceful about seeing a journey continue without you. It means the world does not collapse when your part is done. The ferry carries others. The water keeps moving. The city remains connected by routes you do not have to take right now. You sip the tea. Across the strait, the old city glows. Behind you, a shopkeeper lowers a shutter. Beside you, the tea house owner rinses glasses. A cat appears under the next table and waits without asking. You break off the smallest piece of pastry and place it on the ground. The cat considers this, accepts it, and disappears. The night feels warmer here, protected by the awning and the tea and the fact that arrival has been gentle. You do not need to explore deeply. This is not a night for conquering a district, checking landmarks, or turning the city into an itinerary. The ferry crossing was the heart of the journey. The Asian shore is the exhale. You sit until the tea is gone. Then you stand, thank the owner, and follow the shore path toward your room. Chapter 7. A room above the Bosphorus. Your room is in a small hotel on a side street above the water. The entrance is narrow, with a brass handle and a lamp that glows warmly against the wall. Inside, the stairs are quiet. The person at the desk speaks softly, gives you the key, and gestures toward the upper floor with the calm courtesy of someone used to late arrivals. The corridor smells faintly of polished wood and clean linen. Your room is simple: a bed with white sheets, a small desk, a wooden chair, a lamp with a warm shade, a narrow balcony behind glass doors. On the table, a bottle of water and 2 clean glasses. The room is not large, but it is high enough above the street that the sound below reaches it gently. You set down your bag. The act feels final in the best way. After moving through the city, standing at the dock, boarding the ferry, crossing the water, drinking tea on the deck, stepping onto the opposite shore, and walking beside the Bosphorus, placing a bag on the floor becomes a quiet ceremony of arrival. You open the balcony door. The night air enters. Below, the water is partly visible between buildings. Not a full view, not a grand terrace, just a dark strip of the Bosphorus carrying reflections. That is enough. A ferry moves across it in the distance, smaller now, its light steady. You cannot hear its engine clearly from here, only the faint suggestion of movement over water. Across the strait, the European shore glows like a long memory. You stand at the balcony for a while. The city has not gone silent, but from this room, the sounds are softened into layers. A distant car, a footstep in the street below, a gull even now, restless in the dark, a faint horn from the water, the hum of the building, the small movement of the curtain behind you. You close the balcony door halfway, leaving enough space for air. The room settles. You pour water into a glass and drink slowly. After the tea, the plain water feels cool and grounding. You place the glass beside the bed. Your coat goes over the chair, shoes near the door, bag against the wall. The small, practical arrangement that tells the body it has arrived. The bed waits. Before lying down, you look once more through the balcony doors. A ferry crosses the Bosphorus. It is farther away than the one you took. Its lights move in a line, slow and sure, across the dark water. Somewhere on board, perhaps, someone holds tea in both hands. Someone leans against the rail. Someone watches this shore approach. Someone feels the same gentle surrender to motion. You do not need to be on that ferry. You have already crossed. Now the journey can become rest. Final descent. Ferry lights on the water. Now let the story become softer. There is nowhere else to go tonight. No more docks to wait on. No more gangways to cross. No more railings to lean against. No more tea to hold against the wind. The ferry has carried you across the Bosphorus, and the room above the water has received you. The journey is complete. Let that be true. The city remains outside, but it does not ask anything from you now. The streets can continue. The ferries can continue. The tea houses can close their doors. The bridges can hold their lights above the water. The mosques can rest in silhouette. The hills can hold their windows. The Bosphorus can move between the continents without needing you to watch every ripple. Breathe in slowly. The room is warm. Breathe out. The water is below. Breathe in. The ferry has crossed. Breathe out. The night can settle. If thoughts come, let them become reflections on the Bosphorus. A lamp stretched thin on the current. A bridge light trembling. A ferry window breaking into gold. A minaret reflected for only a moment before the water changes shape. Thoughts can appear, shimmer, and dissolve. You do not need to follow them back to shore. Let the dock fade. Let the deck fade. Let the tea glass fade. Let the water remain. Dark, slow, wide, patient. Your body can rest now. Feet soft after the shore road. Legs heavy from the late walk. Hands warm from tea, then cool from the balcony air. Shoulders lowering, jaw easing, eyes resting behind closed lids. The bed holds you. The room holds the bed. The building holds the room. The hillside holds the building. The city holds the hill. And the water holds the city. Let everything be held. Outside, another ferry moves across the Bosphorus. You may hear its horn faintly, or you may only imagine it. Either way, the sound is far enough away to be gentle. It does not call you back. It only tells you that the crossing continues for others while you rest. The engine hum you felt on the deck has become a memory in the body. Low, steady, comforting, you can let that remembered rhythm guide the breath. In and out, again, in and out, like the ferry moving through dark water, like the wake widening and softening behind it, like lights stretching and breaking on the surface, like the city breathing on both shores. Nothing more to decide, nothing more to carry, nothing more to see clearly. The journey has already done what it needed to do. It moved you from one shore to another. It gave you wind, tea, water, light, distance, and arrival. Now it gives you permission to stop. The balcony curtain moves slightly. The glass door is open just enough for night air. The water below is dark. The ferry lights are smaller now. The room is still. Sleep can come the way the ferry came to the dock. Slowly at first, then close, then steady enough to trust. Let it arrive. No hurry, no effort, only the soft approach of rest. The dock is behind you. The crossing is behind you. The water continues below. The city glows on both shores. You are here, in a quiet room above the Bosphorus. After midnight, after the crossing, after the tea, after the wind, the bed is warm. The night is wide. The ferry lights move gently on the water, and Istanbul holds the dark with both hands. Rest now. The room is quiet. The Bosphorus is moving. The ferries are far away, and the journey is done. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach, and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach, and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete. The reflections below soften further until they are no longer separate lights, only a slow shimmer on the water. The European shore and the Asian shore become less like places to reach and more like two quiet edges of the same dream. A ferry horn sounds somewhere far away, low and calm, and then the night closes softly around it. The sound does not ask you to move. It only reminds you that the water is still there, carrying others gently through the dark. Let the last images loosen. The dock can fade. The warm tea can become only warmth. The bridge lights can become only small stars near the water. The ferry deck can become only rhythm. The whole crossing can become one slow breath. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered clearly. The city can keep its own lights. The Bosphorus can keep its own current. The room can keep you safe enough for sleep. Breathe in. The room is quiet. Breathe out. The water is moving. Breathe in. The bed is warm. Breathe out. The journey is complete.